Even GST has completed 1 year now. We have Dinesh Kanabar now with us, one of the oldest hands in the tax space. Dinesh, we've seen tax regime changing from one to another, how things have changed over the years. This one is the biggest, and in 1 year, how would you rate the progress?
I would think that when we began a year back, there was a huge amount of skepticism on how GST would play out. I think there are few things which have worked exceptionally well. One is the entire interface with the states and the way the state council has taken up issues and tried to find resolution on a number of issues that have come up from time to time. So that's been a very important thing. Second is that we had a situation earlier on where we are concerned about multiple rates, which of course we continue to be, but many goods being taxed at 28%. While that continues to be one area of concern, the number of items at 28% has shrunk very considerably. The third was on the IT implementation. Again, several glitches that were faced in the initial months. Most of those have overcome till now. The only thing which is remaining at this point of time is really the matching of the invoices, which is going to be a key factor and which is going to really make success out of GST. But overall, the way I would look at it is it's been very good implementation, and several of the skepticisms earlier were not warranted at all. A very significant move forward, and will be very positive about it.
All right. Hi, Mr. Kanabar. This is Mubina as well joining in. Thanks so much. And I'm going to come back to the discussion in relation to the new framework that has been brought about by the RBI when it comes to audit of banks. That's where the RBI wants to ensure that it puts itself in, because it wants to essentially ensure that there is a certain quality when it comes to the standards that of auditing that certain audit firms follow. And anyway, auditors have come under intense scrutiny for the last couple of sessions, for the last couple of weeks rather. Firstly, I want to talk about the provisions that are covered under the new framework. It does allow RBI to pull up auditors, if I'm not mistaken, when there is any sort of misstatement in the accounts, whether that comes to divergence in asset classification or even provisioning. Would you believe that this would be being a bit tough on auditors, or do you think that given the scenario, it's a justified thing to do by the RBI?
So two parts to it. You're speaking about RBI, and of course that's a very important aspect. But even more important than that is the NFRA provisions which have just got notified, where virtually the entire ability of the institute to monitor the profession has moved away from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India to NFRA. And NFRA is the body which is now going to really ask the institute to come up with accounting standards, approve those standards, look at the implementation of the accounting and the auditing standards, take disciplinary proceedings, investigate auditors, etc. And then you have something which IRD has done, and now we have something which RBI has done. So what has happened really is that over a period of time, the regulators have come back to say that instead of accountancy being a self-regulated profession, which it has been till now, the other regulators who have an oversight on the industry which is being audited will also have an oversight on the auditors auditing that industry. So whether it is RBI saying that if they find that there is anything wrong with the financial statements of the banks, they can question the auditors. Similarly, for all listed companies, for all unlisted companies above a particular threshold, it's going to be NFRA. And I think what this is doing is really there have been audit failures, and there has been this increased scrutiny of how audit work is being carried out. And this whole question that can Institute of Chartered Accountants as a self-governing body be the only body which is going to look at how audit is done, or really others are going to look at it, and it is all a step in that direction.
Right, Mr. Kanabar, if you could also just say that, how things are changing as far as auditors are concerned. Do you think the changes are happening for the good? So going ahead, there will be transparent guidelines which come in, how things happen, resignation of an auditor, how it has to go through, which all should augur pretty well for corporate India and auditors.
I guess one of the things which has been happening, I don't think really that there was any lack of consistency or there was any lack of regulations. I think what was happening earlier is that the touch on the auditors was very light. If there was something wrong, it became a subject matter of disciplinary proceedings. The disciplinary proceedings went on for a long point of time. There was this whole debate, for example, as to whether a firm of chartered accountants can be pulled up or only the individual who has signed a particular accounts be pulled up. Now, all of that probably gave rise to a situation where people maybe got away with some negligence, some quantum of mischief, whatever one could call it. And what has been seen now, for example, with the NFRA regulations, is that the firms of chartered accountants are being called into question. One of the things which NFRA is also going to do, for example, is to look at the issues which affect independence of auditors, conflicts, etc., etc. So broadly, overall, the profession is coming for greater and greater and greater degree of regulation. Now, at one level, from a concept perspective, I think it's very, very welcome. I think the only thing which one needs to do is that if the pendulum swings the other way, probably the audit profession may not see very many people attracted to it at all. Globally, outside of India, the profession of audit has seen huge amount of litigation. We haven't seen such an amount of litigation in India, class action suit against the auditors. That has been the trend overseas, but not a trend in India. And I wonder whether all of this will lead to some of those things happening, in which case audit will become a very, very risky profession. I might also make one other comment, that for far too long, chartered accountancy firms have looked upon the audit profession as being a loss leader and sort of tried to make money on other matters, consulting, tax, etc. I think over a period of time, what is happening will ensure that you ask for appropriate audit fees, see that audit is a paying proposition in itself because you are able to devote the right quality and quantity of resources rather than look at other ways in which to cope up with what you could call as a loss leader.
Right. Mr. Kanabar, just also a word once again on GST. You know, it's such a big change. We've been speaking to a lot of corporates who have been implementing GST and how, you know, they and some of their suppliers, clients have been facing issues. Do you think second year will be the clear year to judge? Because now that people know how to do the processes, or processes are getting widely known, you think second or the third year is when you will see a big impact of this change? As we talk to a number of our clients with whom we work very, very closely on GST, I don't think today processes are an issue. E-bills were supposed to be an issue. That hasn't been an issue. I think what are the issues which we are looking at today? The first and the foremost issue which we have today is the multiplicity of rulings which are coming from authority for advance ruling. So each state is coming out with its own interpretation. And those interpretations sometimes are not even consistent with what the government believes to be the right situation. And there are examples galore, whether it is sale of goods at duty-free shops to what is the taxability of solar panels, etc., etc. So the one thing which is the first need of the hour is to ensure that we get consistency of rulings centrally from the authority for advance ruling. I think that's very, very critical. Second is the issue on refunds. You know, the government has now come back to say that refunds have started to happen. It's a history of the past. But what sometimes we do not realize is that for exporters, for small and medium scale enterprises, those refunds constitute really an essential part of their existence. And if the refunds do not come in good time, they really could almost face bankruptcy. We need to ensure that we find a mechanism to ensure that those refunds come in time. To answer your question, I do believe that second year will be the year of stabilization, but stabilization is more required in these regions as opposed to anywhere else. Thank you so much for taking out time for us. Always good to get perspective from you. There was a view coming in on what's happening with the new framework from RBI as well as 1 year of GST.